Hello and welcome to the DC Stewart Show Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Stewart, along with my two kinfolk, Isaah and Najee, and it is Monday. Happy Monday to everyone. We're glad you joined us today. We're so happy to be here, as always, bring you the best content on the planet at the DC Stewart Show Podcast featuring Isaah and Najee. We currently have Isaah on location at Dolphins Stadium covering the Dolphins preseason practices today. And he will be reporting and giving us some in-depth information because we're going to be covering some of the stuff that happened this weekend from some of the games. We had some really good preseason games, watching the starters come in and play a couple of series, watching the second teamers and the third teamers and the fourth teamers. So we'll cover all of that. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. We're blowing up like crazy, and we're happy that we're blowing up like crazy. It don't get any better than this. I figured I'd wear blue on a Monday, and what else can I say? I got my kinfolk Najee here. He's looking all sharp with his Lakers gear on. We're going to be talking a little bit about NBA basketball today as well. And we're going to be covering some Hall of Fame information from the NFL of who has been snubbed from the Hall of Fame for the longest of time. So we're going to cover some of that. And we're going to get this party started. But let me introduce my kinfolk and bring him in from Dolphin Stadium live. Isaah, what is going on today?
Well, hey, man, listen. I told you I couldn't believe, the football season has started. I'm here on the grounds of my mighty Dolphins.
At Hard Rock Stadium.
Dude, they played a magnificent game this weekend. I was so glad that they played with all intensity. I'm here on the ground. They're fixing the stadium up. They're making it groomed. They're cutting the grass. You can see how beautiful the stadium is. You can see all the folks are coming out to watch their practices. And listen, man, our Dolphins going to have a great season this year. And I just can't wait about myself.
Well, I see some head shaking right here to the left. So I see Najee shaking his head and giving that kind of smile where he's not feeling you on that, right?
He can shake his head all he wants to. You wait till his sorry Ravens come in town. Listen.
Well, I would be careful calling them sorry because the Ravens got one of the best football teams in the NFL right now. They do,
but my mighty Dolphins going to show them something. Hey, listen, they say when you look good, you groom good, everything look good. Look at the guys are grooming the field, grooming the stadium, grooming the outside of the stadium, making it look good for the fans. And guess what? We're welcome all the bandwagon jumpers. Come aboard.
And chime in today. Ask us questions. Ask Isaah questions because, the Dolphins facilities are state of the art. They got an A. Yes, we covered grading for team gradings for facilities, for, ownership, for management. And the Dolphins score right up at the top, if not number one, for sure. We covered that about 6 months ago where we were covering some of the teams. And I'm very proud to say I'm from Miami. It's a beautiful day, as you could see behind Isaah in Miami.
It's blazing hot out here, too.
And it's blazing hot. Exactly.
Illinois, guys getting the place all nice and beautiful for the season to kick off. Najee, I can't wait till you get here, man. I'm going to have a nice room for you, too, when you come down. You don't have to get a hotel. You can come stay at my house if you want.
Now, there you go.
You can get some old-fashioned cooking, man. Whatever you like, we'll have it fixed for you. Whatever you drinking, tell me what you're drinking. We'll have it all ready for you.
Well, you better have some good high-end yak ready for when Najee get there, because Najee drink the best of the best. And just like I do.
Hey, listen. He can drink whatever he wants, because I'll be able to pay for it from the bet. Woo!
So,
my Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number uno.
Let me bring in my second kinfolk because I need some rebuttal. It looks like my second kinfolk, Najee, is kind of like, oh, so What is he talking about? What is he talking about, Najee?
You know how when they say they want you to speak good for existence for something to happen. That's all he's doing. He's just trying to prep himself up. He already knows what's gonna happen, man. The Dolphins do the same thing every year.
Every year,
preseason, you got the rookies. They play good against other rookies, and then when it comes to your veterans, veterans fold
it's too many
against
machines
other
going
veterans.
on in the background.
I can't hear him. They don't even help the case.
Too many machines going on in the background. I can't hear what he's saying.
Would you like me to tell you what he's saying?
I can't hear him. The maintenance guys is over flooding his vocal.
Can you hear me?
I could barely hear you. Oh, I can hear you clearly, DC. Go right ahead.
Okay, so he's telling you the Dolphins is going to go through the same repetition of repeat as they've done over the last several years for sure. Yep. And they are the rookies play well against other rookies on other teams, but when they get up against these first team defenses and, when they have to face off and when it all boils down to a win or a loss, I don't think Najee's confident that the Dolphins is going to have a season where they're going to be going to the playoffs and running through it. So that's what I'm telling you. I just wanted to interpret what Najee was saying since you say you couldn't hear him.
It's going to fold like a lawn chair.
He's a basketball guy. He's a basketball guy. He don't know what he's talking about.
He says fold like a lawn chair, Isaiah. So let's get this party started. And let's talk a little bit about some of our subjects. And Andy Brown is bringing us some of the best content on a Monday morning. Right now, it's warm in LA. It's been warm all week in LA. But the good part about LA is it's a little cooler at night. We don't have the humidity that they have in the Midwest and in the South, like places like Florida and Georgia and all those southern states and Midwestern states. We have a very nice, cool breeze to come through Los Angeles, so it makes it very pleasant. Yesterday was a really busy day. A lot of people out and about, people eating at outdoor cafes, people enjoying life, moving around. Tourism is still, to me, looks very strong here in Los Angeles, so we're happy to see that. The bottom line is we want you, the viewer, to make sure that you're taking care of your health, and avoiding things like heat stroke and things of that sort, because it's easy and it can creep up on you, so we don't want that to happen to anyone. I worked out yesterday. I was able to get 30 minutes of cardio in. I thought I'd jump all over that while I had an opportunity at Gold's Gym, and I love Gold's Gym. I don't go out there often to Venice to go to Gold's, but when I do go, I always enjoy the experience at Gold's. So if you live in LA and haven't been to Gold's, check it out. If you don't live in LA and you're visiting LA, check Gold's Gym out. That's the Mecca. That's where Arnold Schwarzenegger and all of the greats, Lee Haney, Ronnie Coleman, all of them kind of came through there and made a mark on the bodybuilding community as a collective. So I'm going to ask my two Ken folks a question before we get this thing off and running. Where the party at?
Party is right here.
It's right here, big dog. Right here. Right here. Party's right here. It's right here.
Week,
and you know where else?
The week before that, it's going to be here next month. It's going to be there the month after. And next year, the 2026 is coming up. It's going to be there too. Yes, baby, get on board. It's here. DC Stewart Podcast is right up here. It's all about the DC, Najee, and Isaiah, baby. Let's do this.
Let's do it. The party is here. We're getting this thing started. And let's go. We're finna get it off the ground. So our first Andy Brown topic of the day, and I'm really passionate about this as well as, a lot of other people, because we've had commenters come through and talk about players, throwback players, as I call some of them, because they are throwback players. They were the original players from the NFL back in the 80s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. And these players are some of the best players ever played the game. So the first throwback player I want to talk about is Miami Dolphins wide receiver Mark Clayton. He's not in the Hall of Fame. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. He was part of that Marx Brothers trio down in Miami with Dan Marino. It was called Air Marino, the Air Show. Technically, those guys ran go routes pretty much every play. I mean, and Mark Duper had the speed to run those go routes. Mark Duper could run right up under the ball. Mark Clayton was just as dangerous, but Mark Clayton was more of a intermediate type of receiver where he would catch and run, kind of like John Taylor and Jerry Rice. They catch those 15 ins or outs, and they were intermediate routes, and they could take it to the house easily. So Mark Clayton is not in the Hall of Fame right now, and I'm going to start with Isaiah and ask Isaiah, why isn't Mark Clayton in the Hall of Fame? One thing I will say, that Mark Clayton came out of University of Louisville. And Louisville back then, those teams weren't great, like some of the Louisville teams with Lamar Jackson. When Lamar Jackson was there, Louisville was an altogether different program. But Mark Clayton stepped into the NFL and made a mark for himself. He made a legacy for himself. And I'd love to have Mark Clayton come on to the show at some point, because there is nothing like talking to Dolphins players at that point back then and picking their brains on just the life in the NFL, just everyday things that they did in the NFL back then, because they were practicing at St. Thomas College. I want to believe back then they hadn't moved to this new facility over at Dolphins at Hard Rock where they are now. So, Isaiah, break it down for me and tell me why you think, and make a case for Mark Clayton of why you think he should be in the Hall of Fame. He should be nominated and be in the Hall of Fame right now.
Well, Mark was this type of dynamic. He wasn't that fast. Duper was the speedster.
Duper was the speed.
Yes, Duper was the speedster. He just had that way of getting open. He ran very crisp routes. He always found his little corner or the curl route to get open, and then he would turn it up, and that's where he got most of his yards. He was never a guy who's going to burn it down the sideline, but he was the guy who kept Marino out of trouble. Marino got in a little trouble where he can dish the ball off really quick before he got sacked. Clayton was the guy. When they needed something where it was 4th and 8, where they needed to get rid of the ball and grab a first down, Clayton was the guy. Clayton was the guy who always made that chain continue to move down the field. So, listen, man, I would be thrilled to see him be inducted to the Hall of Fame, because he's very worthy of it. It may come in the next few years. Sometimes guys have to sit on their hands for a while before they get nominated. But, eventually when they start looking at his numbers and see his body of work throughout his career, they probably have put him right in there with no questions asked otherwise, other than that. I think he's coming later on.
So It looks like he's been out of football for 32 years. And to me, that's a little long for a player like Mark Clayton not to have already been inducted into the Hall of Fame. I know you agree with me, and I'm sure Najee agreed with me. Najee never got a chance to see Mark Clayton play, but he's seen highlights and reels of Mark Clayton, and everything Isaiah just summed up technically covered everything about Mark Clayton. Mark Clayton was the type of receiver that could catch a 10 yards in or out and take it to the house. It was just, and that Monday night game against that undefeated Chicago Bears team, phenomenal. Mark Clayton made it look easy because, the Bears was running a 91 defense, technically. You had one safety back there. He had to cover center field because they were rushing up to 9 men. So if you're rushing 9 men, you only got 11 men on defense. So you got a safety, and I think that safety was Gary Fensick back then. And Gary Fensick was a good safety, heavy hitter. He'll bring the noise. He brought that heat. But Gary Fensick wasn't prepared for that Monday night game against Miami, and Miami's legacy was on the line. That team that went undefeated back in the early 70s. They had a perfect season. They finished out, won the Super Bowl and everything. And Miami had to get this game done. They had to get this game out of the way. It didn't look good for them against the Bears, but they had a perfect offensive scheme because they shotgun Marino, and Marino had the quickest release in football. Daniel Constantine Marino. I'm going to put his middle name in there because Dan Marino was a super, super good quarterback. He knew how to get that ball out. Clayton and Duper and Nat Moore, they ran rings around the Bears defense. So, Najee, tell me a little bit about some of these players, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Mark Clayton because we're going to talk about a couple of other players as well that we think should be in the Hall of Fame. But the nomination process can be a little bit subjective and complicated. Do you know and can tell us about what you think these players who've been out of the league as long as Mark Clayton, why should they have to wait any longer?
The crazy thing is when it comes to the Hall of Fame, you got the NBA, you got the NFL. When you talk about the NBA, people say everybody gets in the NBA Hall of Fame. But when it comes to NFL, it seems like it seems like politics almost, basically, because it just some people don't make sense why they not make. Like you see how long it took for Terrell Owens not to make it.
True.
So I'm like, bro, like, just think about it. So their career has been gone and been done forever. I'm 36. He had been playing 32 years. So you mean to tell me what he has done since then for him to be like, oh, you know what, let's put him in for that long? Like, what else can he have done? I don't understand. I never understood that when somebody's been out of the league that long, what else could they have done for their career to put them in there? Because you know how many more players has played in 32 years?
True.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man. People has played. Some people got drafted after that and retired before today. So, like, what else could they have done in their career to top the next person?
True.
Yeah,
I never understood it.
That's a pretty valid observation of it, Najee, because DC and I, we enjoyed watching Sterling Sharp for years and years and years, and he just got inducted, like a couple weeks ago. And so what you're saying is pretty valid, and I understand that. But like you say, they go through a sifter when they voting these guys in, and unlike any other sport, you got to realize football players have more people on the team, unlike basketball and baseball. They don't have that many people as well. So football has the most athletes that's on each team, so they really have to crunch numbers when they induct people in the Hall of Fame for football. Yep,
that's true. And it's one of them situations where we can go on and on about different players and the names of players that's not currently in the Hall of Fame, but I think the NFL needs to do a better job with information and analytical information based on some of these players' impact on the league, because to me, it has a lot to do with some of these players help this league get to where it is today, especially guys like Mark Clayton and Mark Duper and Dan Marino, and I can keep naming them. Look, I'm going to name a guy that you don't hear from at all, or anybody that you don't hear talking about, is Bob Kuechenberg and Dwight Stevenson. Those two guys were centers for the Miami Dolphins, and they played forever, and I know Dwight Stevenson was legendary, one of the best centers I've ever seen play the game, other than Mike Webster for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
If I'm not mistaken, Stevenson is in the Hall of Fame, DC.
I think he is. Yes. I'll double check it though. But if you look at guys like that, these are guys that don't get any credit because they're down in the trenches. They're getting their heads butted. They're butting heads every play, getting concussed on and off and on and off. A lot of times you don't even know they're concussed. They're still in the game. Back then, when you sustained a concussion back then, you might come out of play and then you were back in there, and that's just how life in football was back then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But now, they have all of these concussion protocols, which they do need. I mean, they have to have them because, people are being injured long term for the long term effects on concussions. But I will say that guys like Mark Clayton, they should be brought to the forefront and they should be in the Hall of Fame because they helped make the league to what it is today. And we're going to talk about a lot of other players. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start an online petition for that on our show and just have people come on and comment. You don't have to sign anything, but you just come on and comment and just say yay or nay, technically, for these players who we think that should be in the Hall of Fame. I would just say the NFL, once again, has a lot of work to do. So here's Mark Clayton's numbers. It looks like he had a total receiving yards of 8,974 yards over his career. And a lot of that has to do with the dynamics of Miami offense. They were two bookends. So you had Mark Duper running go routes, constantly catching bombs. And then you would have Clayton catch a bomb every now and then. So if you look at these numbers could be deceptive in terms of his contributions to that offense. And Miami was a tight end heavy offense as well, because what they did is they exploited the middle of the field when those two bookends were covered, either on go routes or in and outs or deep posts or skinny posts. They ended up throwing it to the tight end, which they had some pretty decent tight ends over the career and duration of the Miami Dolphins, as well as a small running game as well. You know, you look at Woody Bennett and got Andre Franklin. Is that a name you remember, Isaiah? Andre Franklin?
Dude,
a total Mack truck.
Bruiser, man.
Bruiser.
You get in front of this guy, you might as well put your doctor on speed dial, man, because you're going to have to be concussed for you weeks.
Yep. And he was a big running back
brutal
to me for his size, because he used to wear really big shoulder pads with a donut. We call them a donut, neck rolls. And he used to have that big old neck roll, and he would drop that helmet and that shoulder on you so quick. I seen him run over so many guys. It was just scary.
Legs, man. He had these huge thighs too, bro.
Yes, he did.
Knock you on the butt when you tried to tackle him.
Exactly.
If you came in there halfway, you're going to get brutal. He's going to bruise you.
It's going to be brutal.
Man.
Absolutely.
You over.
Exactly.
I mean, you really have to game tackle this guy to bring him down.
You did.
I very seldom see one guy bring him down. You had to game tackle him.
Yep. You're exactly right. So out of his 1,000 yard seasons for Mark Clayton, he had 5 1,000 yard seasons or 1,000 plus yard seasons. So all of this adds up that the man should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't care how they go about getting him there. He should be in the Hall of Fame as far as I'm concerned. So at the end of this show, I'm going to put his name in there as well as several other players' name in there. And you just come on and you comment and you say yay or nay. I mean, it's yes or no. Do these guys belong in the Hall of Fame? And I'll compile all that data up, and I'm going to reach out to someone in NFL, because we have NFL offices out here. Now, it's a committee that deals with nominations and the whole process. So it's a different process rather than just going to the general NFL asking them to do something like that. It's a committee. So I'm going to be working my way to someone that's got some connection to that committee to get these guys considered, because they should be considered as far as I'm concerned. So let's move to.
And if they wait until after they pass away, it don't mean nothing to me.
Yeah, it's shameful. I think it's shameful if they wait until they pass away.
Yeah.
So the longer they wait, the more risk it is, especially for players that's in their 70s or, you know, pushing up on their mid 70s. Some of them can be old as in their 80s, you know? So once again, I'm going to be pushing this issue, especially with these players, because they deserve, they put in that time and that effort and that work. So one thing I will say that Isaiah is currently at Dolphin Stadium. So you see a little bit of movement. He's working the Dolphins practice today. He's going to be covering that for this show. And once he gets back with us, we'll be able to share his information on our next show. So we know you're going to have to stay tuned for that. So let's talk about this next player by the name of Lester Hayes. Let me repeat that name, Lester Hayes. And I'm going to say this once, and I'm going to say this again. It's a travesty that the NFL has not inducted Lester Hayes into Canton, into the Hall of Fame. I plan on going to Canton one day, and hopefully in the next 5 years. And when I do, I want to see Lester Hayes's, I want to see his statue in the Hall of Fame. So let's get into Lester Hayes a little bit. Let's talk about Lester Hayes' career, because Lester Hayes, he played from 1977 to 1986, which was kind of a pivotal time or transitional time for the NFL, moving into modernization of technology and everything else that they were doing at that time. They had TV contracts, but they don't have the type of setup and TV contracts and, you know, online internet, you know, promotions and those type of things, kind of like what the NBA does. The NFL should take notes from the NBA, because the NBA got it right. The NBA's got it figured out. The NBA is not perfect, but the NBA has utilized social media to explode their expansion. They have used social media to explode their presence around the world, and the NFL needs to do a better job with that. But so let's revert back to Lester Hayes. Lester Hayes came out of Texas A&M. He was a linebacker at Texas A&M, a super good linebacker at the time that he was drafted, and he was drafted by the Raiders. Back then, the Raiders were looked at as a team of misfits, and I'm not saying misfits in a insulting manner. They just had a bunch of guys that didn't make it on other teams, or guys didn't want to be on other teams, and they ended up on the Raiders. And the Raiders were one of the most dynamic teams in football under the leadership of Al Davis, who was the current owner at that time. Now, his son, Mark Davis, runs the team now, and they're called the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm going to start with Najee on this one and ask Najee, because I know Najee did not watch Lester Hayes play football. However, I think what a stigma has stuck to Lester Hayes, which is unfair to me, is he used a substance called stickum. And stickum was a substance that you could bathe on your hands or your gloves, because some players wore gloves back then. Majority of players wore the stickum on their hands. Now, the stickum generally applied to wide receivers, cornerbacks of that sort, because they had to put their hands on you a lot, technically, especially from the defensive perspective of it. There were several other players in the league that used stickum at the time, and they're currently in the Hall of Fame. So if anybody in the NFL or anybody who's reluctant to consider Lester Hayes for the Hall of Fame, just don't use stickum as an excuse. That is not something that I excuse the NFL. And I'm talking about the NFL brass, the upper management with the NFL, more so than anybody else. But Lester Hayes belongs in the Hall of Fame, and I'm going to keep beating it. And it sounds like I'm beating on a dead horse, but I'm going to beat that dead horse until he's dead and dead and dead again, until Lester Hayes gets to the Hall of Fame. Najee, tell me a little bit, because the Raiders played, and they were a nasty team back then. When you came into Oakland Coliseum, you were going to get it handed to you majority of the time. When they moved to Los Angeles, at the Coliseum, they were going to hand it to you a majority of the time. Lester Hayes deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Tell me why you think he would, versus some of the other players who used stickum didn't have to worry about that.
Well, he stopped playing before I was even born. So the one thing I can say, maybe his face was already dirty, so they're using that as an excuse. It could be that. I don't know. I really don't know. It could, so if, let's say, for example, let's say nobody liked him in the league already, or he already his face was dirty with people, by him using basically an enhancement, because it helps you get the upper hand on your defender. I mean, so now he's using that. He was the first one, so we're gonna make sure we're gonna make an example of him. Ain't gonna get it. And that was just what I was just telling you. You said 86. when the season's over and we get to the Super Bowl, that's 40 years, bro. And he's not getting in there, man. 40 years? Even if let's say if he finished, I don't know the age he finished playing football. If he finished playing in even his early 30s, it's been 40 years. So that man's in his 70s. What's the point? I mean, at that point, I'm not even happy that I'm in there. My whole life is gone.
True.
At that age, my life is finished already. Even if he lasts another 20 years in this on this earth, 70 plus years is gone.
That's true. And it's kind of like, it reminds me of baseball with Pete Rose, and baseball never forgave Pete Rose for that gambling scandal that he had back in the 70s. Or, well, it was more so the 80s, because I can remember when they were talking about it. And Pete Rose, if we revert over to baseball, Pete Rose is another person should be in the Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame. But there has been other players that has used that enhancement you just explained, and they were wide receivers, and they're in the Hall of Fame. So to me, if it's an enhancement, these two guys shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame either. Would you agree?
Oh, I agree. Now, other question, was it known before they got in the Hall of Fame? Or was it known after? That could be a good part.
True. But, I think what happened was after the Hall of Fame, well, before the Hall of Fame, one particular player used stickum because he was playing in the 80s and the 90s. So stickum was actually banned by the NFL. And once it was banned, I would assume whoever used it shouldn't be considered, right? Would you agree with that, Isaiah?
Well, it appeared to be a heist right now. The way these guys are catching the ball of today, where they catching it with one hand, DC, they catching the ball with like a missile coming to them with one hand, catching it with one hand. They catching it behind their back. They catching it with their chest. They catching it all over the place. And now when you think of a guy had stickum, it's almost like as if they were cheating. I watched them play with that stickum. At first, I thought it was just a mere fact when you wear stickum is when it's raining, or if it's snowing, you could wear stickum just for the ball not to slide to your hand. But to make a catch with stickum, it's almost like you're cheating, man. Because I see so many guys catch the ball with their hands when these quarterbacks are throwing missiles at them, and they're catching it without stickum, without any enhancement, and any of that stuff that's going to make them favorable to catch the ball. I think it was cheating now, man. At the point when I was a little kid, when I watched them, I thought it was just great for them to spray their hands down. The ball was almost had soot on it because it had so much of the glue to the point where they had so much stickum on there. But what's the difference when you having gloves? Gloves is a form of cheating too, because if you have gloves on, it keeps the ball from hurting your hand when they throw it. That's almost the same thing.
True.
So that's the way I look at it. So I'm going to move in another spot over at the Dolphins camp, you guys. Give me a moment. I'll park over there, and then I'll go in, and we'll go from there, guys. But anyway, we're having a good show, and I'm loving it. Loving being over here at the Dolphins camp. See you guys soon.
Okay, sounds good. So my thing is, Lester Hayes played from 1977 to 1986. It looked like they banned stickum in 1981, as far as I could see it. He recorded 39 interceptions. Yeah,
that's half his career.
That's half of his career. I just thought that the news coverage of Lester Hayes wearing stickum, because they used to have a lot of camera shots panned to him with that stuff all over his hands, and it was like he was bathed down in it with his gloves and his hands. He was a cornerback. He was a shutdown corner. And how often does a shutdown corner get an opportunity to catch interceptions? It depends on the athletic ability of the corner, but I don't think it was anything that was super overwhelming that would have caused anything. I would say this: a wide receiver wearing stickum, to me, was more impactful than a cornerback wearing stickum. Do you agree with that, Najee? And if you don't, explain it.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
Because I mean, with a receivers, they getting the the hand on every play. The cornerback sometimes don't even touch anybody. They just normally just in the presence of somebody. But the receiver, he needs it every play. That means he's gonna have the upper head on him every play, even when he's either open or it's too far out or anything of that sort. He's gonna be the first person to be able to get it.
that's true.
And for him to be out that long too, you said 81. It's, I mean, he didn't even last that long. Then, like I said, that was half his career. And if he used his entire career, that's crazy. He only played what 8-9 years. It was out for like
Right,
5.
right. So it looks like he had 39 regular season interceptions, returning them for 572 yards and scoring 4 defensive touchdowns. Man, Lester Hayes was a dog. Lester Hayes was the type of guy that he shut those receivers down, and when he needed to make a tackle, he made the tackle. He wasn't that type of fearful cornerback that was afraid to tackle. Lester Hayes was a linebacker in college, so he wasn't afraid of contact. He would come up and he laid a wood on pretty much any receiver. He didn't care even what size they were. He just took care of business from that perspective. He generally averaged 14 yards per interception return. He had 8 interceptions in the postseason. So he tied a franchise record of 39 interceptions with Willie Brown for the Raiders franchise record. So he's part of a record right there. And 13 picks in 1980, Defensive Player of the Year in 1980, selected to Pro Bowl 5 times from 1980 to 1985, I believe. So I'm gonna keep going in on this because Lester Hayes is just beyond me that they would pass this man up. And we've had a show, Isaiah and myself done a show, maybe 6 months older. I mean, I would say probably late last year that we did a show about Lester Hayes. And we're still getting feedback, good feedback from that show about Lester Hayes because, you know, if you look at the bigger picture, how do you put one player in with stickum and not put the other player in? Because maybe it's you want to attach a stigma to this other player, which I think is highly unfair. But, you know, life is unfair, right? So people like Lester Hayes, we need to step up as a collective, and we need to get to the bottom of why Lester Hayes is not already in the Hall of Fame. And it doesn't matter whether he's already in there. We need to work on right now petitioning to get Lester Hayes into the Hall of Fame. And I'm not going to lay down and rest until it happens. I've never met Lester Hayes. I would love to meet him. Like you say, he's up there in age, so, and he looked pretty good the last time I've seen him on the internet. So we definitely would love to have Lester Hayes on this show. However, we're still going to petition for Lester Hayes to be the best of the best of the best to be able to get into that Hall of Fame, you know. So let's move forward. I could see Isaiah is back online. He's on location. He's technically covering the grounds of Dolphins. I call it Hard Rock Stadium because that's the name of the stadium. He is on the facility grounds. The team is going to be practicing soon, so he's going to be covering that for us.
Since you want to speak on the Dolphins, let's just talk about this breaking news that just hit the ceiling. They
Okay.
say Joe Flacco is going to start at cornerback the first game of the regular season. So
For the Cleveland Browns.
So let's see if this Shedeur Sanders MVP thing is going to really happen or not. Because it's already I should have put a wedge on. I should have put a bet on it. I should have put a bet on it.
Did you hear that, Isaiah? Because he's jabbing you again.
Yeah, I know, but he's talking with scared money, DC. He claimed he felt like Flacco was going to start, but he didn't put up $1. Not $1. I would have gave him $1. I would have given him $2. But, you know, this is without saying Flacco is a veteran. Flacco is a guy who they want to actually teach everybody. So don't get it twisted, Najee. He's there to be a teacher. That's all. He don't have no future there. He's going to be there probably another year or so. He's going to teach the rest of the young guys. So I'm honored for him to be the starter so he can teach everybody. These guys not really ready to be the starter. They're good, but they're not ready. Flacco is a guy who's been there for 30, 40, 50 years. He's an old antique. He's a blue tag, as we said in Florida. He's an antique. So I don't mind him starting. Come on, man. Come on.
One thing I will say, I have to side with Najee on this one.
Hot out here, DC.
Najee should have probably wagered that one because he would have won that one. Now, I don't know whether you guys recall, but I predicted Joe Flacco was going to start the season. I don't know whether you guys recollect that.
Yeah, I remember you predicted he was going to start.
I predicted that Joe Flacco, that's a safe bet. I mean, that's a safe bet. So that's without a doubt. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the Cleveland Browns and Shedeur and that particular quarterback room a little bit later on into the show. But moving on, it looks like we have another receiver here from the Miami Dolphins, Nat Moore. And I'm going to start with you, Isaiah. Do you think Nat Moore should be in the Hall of Fame?
Of course, Nat Moore probably would. It's just like any other thing, DC, what we were talking about. It just takes time. Nat Moore is an intricate part of Dan Marino's success when he was the quarterback, and I think, it's going to take time. He may not get there because Nat Moore had so many other, and Dan Marino had so many other options to throw the ball to. So I don't know. He has the numbers because he had a bunch of people to throw the ball to, but Nat Moore is a guy who was a South Florida guy. He grew up here in South Florida. He went to high school here. He went to the University of Florida in college. But I hope he make it. I hope he make it. He's still do so many things for the community. He's a guy who's got everything happening here. They named so many programs after him too. So Nat Moore. So let's listen, man. He should get there. If he don't, he had an illustrious career, beautiful career.
He did.
For the Miami Dolphins.
He did. And I remember those Nat Moore. And he was one of
the ones that bounced around a lot either, DC. He was a guy from bouncing around from team to team.
He stayed solid. It looks like he played from 1974 to 1986. He had a 13-year career. He played 183 games, which, as far as durability, and he was very undersized. He wasn't a big receiver. 510 receptions, 7,546 yards, 74 receiving touchdowns, technically 15 yards per catch. Longest reception was 80 yards because he was more of a possession receiver, running hooks, running outs, quick ins, that type of thing. So he's definitely formidable, and I think Nat Moore deserves to be in there as well, So we're gonna move on. Andy Brown has got some more topics. Let's move along here. Let's talk a little bit about Pat Riley is going to be inducted with a statue into Crypto Arena, which will be outside of Crypto Arena because Kobe Bryant and Magic and Kareem and those guys are already there. Najee, I'm going to start with you first. Do you think Pat Riley should have a statue with the Lakers, and why?
What team did he coach? Did he coach the...
He coached the Lakers forever. I mean, he coached the Lakers throughout the 80s with Magic, Kareem, Showtime, and the whole 9 yards.
He should have been in there with those glory years when they had Kareem and Magic, when they had the West or the chokehold. Of course. The Magic went to the finals 9 times in 13 seasons, something like that. Yeah, why not? Of course.
Absolutely. Pat Riley was a very unique, very special type of coach because he had intricate relationships with those players on that team. I remember when they won a championship and the media, they were in the locker room celebrating, and one of the media, reporters approached Pat Riley and asked Pat Riley would they be able to do a three-peat. I think it was a three-peat because I think they had repeated. And by the
they had
time
to
Pat
fight.
Riley could get anything out, Kareem had walked over and just grabbed Pat Riley and covered his mouth. It was the funniest situation because Kareem didn't want Pat Riley to make any predictions. So Pat Riley,
yeah,
exactly, and that was during the time when they played in the Forum, the Inglewood. It's in the Inglewood. They call it the Kia Forum right now. It's right next door to SoFi Stadium. They do concerts in there and they do different events in there, and that particular forum was the place to be. That when it come to parties, after parties. When the Lakers won championships or after big games, they went to parties, and they had these parties outside of the forum and inside of the forum, as far as I'm concerned. So I would think Pat Riley deserves a statue, but let me ask Isaiah a question. Isaiah, do you think Pat Riley should be inducted into the Miami Heat's organization and have a statue of him down in Miami?
Well, man, listen, Pat Riley is the catalyst of both of their success in certain eras. You know, I see him as almost like a god in LA who started everything off, and then he came here to Miami where we were scrapping and clawing trying to get a championship, and all of a sudden he started throwing guys together with Mourning and Shaq and Wade and Bosh and all those guys, and he kept it going for a while. So yeah, I mean, he's a good GM. He was a good player. He was a good coach in both places, and we can't forget about the fact that he done so well in New York as well. So we happened to steal him from New York because I don't think New York wanted him to be the GM. So Mickey Harrison and his father say, well, we'll give him the GM spot and the head coaching spot. And Pat Riley jumped ship and came down here to Miami. So yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of solid ties in LA. And they copycat off of each other because their arena was the name the same thing as our arena here because we copied off LA. Arena. So yeah. So I mean, I just hope his statue don't look like Wade's when they put it together. Remember
what's the matter with Wade's statue?
Many people said they look like him. It didn't look like Wade that much.
It looked like Lawrence Fishburne off the
It looked like Larry Fishburne.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like Lawrence Fishburne from the Magic.
Yeah.
I mean, from the Matrix movie. I said, wow, looks nothing like him. But from what they said, because Wade agreed to it too. When they do in the process of it, when they do the process of it, it does look like. But when they start to cement it and it goes into that finished touch, for some reason Black Futures doesn't stay. So that's from what Dwayne Wade said. It just for a reason it just does not stay.
DC,
the only black statue that looked great, looked exactly like him, I think was Charles Oakley. Other than that, nobody actually really looked just like themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he's been an intricate part of the league, not just these teams that he's coached. And the way Pat Riley came about is, Paul Westhead got fired back in the 80s because him and Magic, it was just they couldn't interact together at that time. I mean, Magic came in from Michigan State. He was this phenom. And when he came in, I don't know what type of relationship he had with Paul Westhead, but obviously it wasn't the type of relationship that Paul Westhead could keep his job because Dr. Buss walked Paul Westhead off, got him out of there, and he ended up over at Loyola Marymount, which was a college team at the time. And Pat Riley took that franchise over and never looked back. I mean, he used to be sharp, dressed down with them tailored suits, tailored shirts, slick back hairdo. I mean, he set a fashion trend in the NBA as well back then. Because, all of the coaches back then, or should I say basketball coaches, used to wear suits instead of like they do now, where they wear just like sweats and those type of zip up type of sweat, for each team. But what I will say is I'm going to be happy when they do it for Pat Riley because he deserves it. I think he deserves well more than that. He did a lot in New York as well. And I don't know how he didn't. I don't think he spent enough time in New York for anything to be of that sort up there. But I do know he's still in Miami running the show, and I still think Mickey Harrison should heavily consider putting his statue out front.
He's the president, DC. And Alonzo Mourning is the vice president.
Yeah, Alonzo Mourning is the vice president. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, DC, I'm not throwing no shade. I got to tell you this honestly. They need to focus on their roster more than the statue right now.
That's agree.
I feel.
That's a good point.
Because they just let go Butler and for nothing. They have nothing
I'm moving
else
to another location of the Dolphin facility.
Okay.
I'm going to move in another location of the Dolphin facility. See you guys
Sounds good.
shortly.
Okay. So, Najee, you are indeed correct. I mean, bottom line is they got to focus on winning, and they got to focus on, their strategy as far as their transactions of getting the right kind of players on that roster. Because, like you say, they gave Jimmy Butler away. They didn't get much out of it, I mean,
they got some younger pieces, but not to the level of play that Jimmy can give you.
Yeah. Because they ended up getting, from Golden State, they ended up getting Andrew Wiggins. So, I mean, and no shade on Andrew Wiggins, because Andrew Wiggins is a good basketball player. He's a dominant basketball player, especially during the height of his career. But I feel like now he's possibly on the tail end of his career. Jimmy Butler's got a lot left in the tank. Yeah. Jimmy Butler's got a lot left in the tank when it comes to that, Yep. So let's go to the next topic that Annie Brown is talking about. And the next topic is going to be Colin Kaepernick. Let's talk a little bit about Colin Kaepernick's 8-part series. Well, it was supposed to be an 8-part docuseries. And I was reading last night that Spike Lee was supposed to, I guess, produce and direct it, and along with ESPN, in conjunction with ESPN, it doesn't look like that project is moving forward. It looks like it's pretty much dead in the water due to creative differences. Najee, in your opinion, where do you think they hit a snag? Was it more from Colin Kaepernick's parties, or more from the ESPN side of what they didn't want? And they just kept going back and forth, kind of like a contract negotiation of a bag, right? What would you say about that?
I think it's the connection between the ESPN and the NFL. Because you said 8. So when you said 8, that means it's 8 episodes. So correct. The question is it an hour per episode or half an hour per episode? And if you're talking about an hour per episode, do you know how much content that has to be? That has to be a lot. You probably have a whole bunch of laundry that the NFL don't want you to know. So that's why every time when they had something going on between him and the NFL, they was like basically not letting him back in. That's just plain point. That's just plain point right there.
And they don't even want him telling his story.
So
correct?
8 hours. If you have 8 hours of, how much stuff that he's probably going to spill on them. Because you're not going to keep nobody's attention for 8 hours and not giving them any type of juicy content about it. You're not. Because especially when you talk about people's attention span now, if you're not delivering between like maybe the second episode, we're going to tune you out anyway. Because when you had the last dance with Jordan, we was tuned to every episode.
Right.
Because he was giving you the past of what he's done. Stuff that we did not know and stuff that we probably did know, but we wasn't too sure of. Now, we don't know too much about Colin Kaepernick. The only thing we know is what the NFL has told us. We haven't really gotten to what he was going to tell us. There's probably a lot that the NFL don't want us to know.
Well, me personally, and this is my personal opinion of it, I suspect that more so from Colin Kaepernick's wanting to tell his story to the world, I think that could have impacted the way ESPN wanted it to come out in the sense of how he told his story. And let me be clear that they were going to chronicle this docuseries all the way back to Colin Kaepernick's upbringing, I'm assuming, because Spike Lee was going to direct it. Anything Spike Lee touches is a success as far as I'm concerned. And they were going to chronicle that back to the point of where he was adopted by his current parents, and he came up in a very good family, solid family. They created a foundation for him to help him grow into the person that he is today, and how he was able to overcome all of these other obstacles when he got to college, when he was at University of Nevada, Reno, when he played there, because technically when he was drafted by the 49ers, I don't think many people gave him much of a chance,
Yeah.
and they didn't give him much of a chance at that time, because at that time, I want to say Alex Smith was at the 49ers, and Alex Smith was number one pick, out of Utah. And nobody ever thought that Colin Kaepernick, and Alex Smith suffered an injury. So I think that's what actually opened the door up for Colin Kaepernick, so that he could come in and he could prove
that was his window.
That was his window of opportunity. Yes.
Yep.
So what really happened was Mike Singletary was the coach, and I want to say Singletary was behind drafting Kaepernick. Kaepernick was an option quarterback. He was a running style quarterback that can throw. He had a good arm, and it's very rare you get both of the same. You get a good arm and you get a good runner.
One or the other.
Yeah,
one that runs like Vic, or he got one that throws the ball like Peyton Manning.
Exactly. And Colin Kaepernick was tall and lanky, and he was elusive. I mean, he was basically, he'd do a read option off of how the defensive end crashed in, and if the defensive end crashed in too deep, he'd take it and keep it and run all the way down the field with it, because the defensive backs and the linebackers had their backs to him. They were running with receivers and stuff. So he was just that type of quarterback that was able to parlay that. And I'm thinking that part of that story has to do with his social justice message. And when he kneeled and all of that stuff probably threw a monkey wrench into how they were going to make that look in this docuseries. This is just all my take on it, as far as I can see it, because, if you got an 8-part docuseries and ESPN initially committed, and I'm not saying they committed into a contractual situation, but if they even verbally committed to it and they got to the point where they set it up where it was going to be a 8-series docuseries, that tells me that they hit a hard snag somewhere. They really did. And it's kind of sad, because I think Kaepernick really wants to tell his story to the world about why he knelt that day. I mean, his whole specific reasoning behind it. Now, he did come public and he said why he knelt, because of police brutality. But it had to have been something else in there that triggered him to do that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, Isaiah, are you in position right now? Because I do want to get you involved in this Colin Kaepernick topic that we're talking about. Are you positioned?
I'm not quite in position, DC, but I could take that information from you.
Okay, so the bottom line is we're talking about that 8-series docuseries of Colin Kaepernick that's been technically put on ice right now. Why did that happen? Spike Lee was supposed to direct, along with ESPN, in conjunction with ESPN, an 8-series docuseries. And Najee brought up a good point. Was it going to be 30 minutes? Was it going to be an hour? Most docuseries like that usually goes from 60 to 90 minutes. To me, when they do these ESPN 30 for 30s, when they do these ESPN NFL players lives, when they do that type of thing, they usually do 60 minutes to 90 minutes. And I'm going to just throw that out there. So, Isaiah, why do you think they hit a snag? Which side do you think they had problems with when it came to creative differences, because that's actually why they said it, they couldn't move forward with it.
I mean, that's why he's not playing anymore right now. I mean, the guy was just embarking on a Super Bowl win, and all of a sudden he don't even have a job. So I think it's just more political than anything. I guess they don't want to stir up anything anymore. Kaepernick been gone for numerous years. He's probably rusty as a nail, and it's just a lot of talk still, thinking because you got players that's out there playing right currently, and they're older than he is. So it could be so many different things that's going on with him. It's just really sorry. In my case, I just feel sorry that a guy who had enormous talent and who could have played in anybody team for as long as his body would allow is, got his career cut short just because he made a stance on something. I mean, it's just so wicked that way things are now. I just hope that people could have came together and settled the differences and let this guy play out his career and understand the real reason why he was out there. It wasn't had nothing to do with the flag or anything. It was clear police brutality, man. I'm just
So
I just
you're saying that ESPN might have not have want some of that creativity of how Spike Lee was going to present it to the public.
Could be. Yeah, it was going to be some things that's not favorable, and they don't want to strike up old wounds. This stuff been a long time, and people starting to forget about it, and it's going to strike up old wounds. And then I'm going to tell you this: if you only do it for 30 minutes or an hour, it's going to be so many things left out of it. Some of the truthful things probably going to be left out of it. So, I mean, that's the only way you can do it on a short. It's going to be so many things left out, and they're going to cut corners on the truth. So it can't be done in the type of attitude that Spike Lee has. He want to be control of everything because he want to get the right things out there. I've seen him in so many movies where he had the Malcolm X movie and so many other documentaries that he did. He want to be in control where he can tell his side of it, and it got to be candid with him. And if it can't be candid and forthcoming with him, he really don't want to do it. So I could see it hitting a glitch where they won't go forward with it, because for an hour and a half is not going to be enough. I would think 2 hours to be
Well, they're going to
honest
do
with
it in
you.
an 8 series. They're going to break it into 8 series. So, I mean,
Okay.
8 shows
That'll be better.
technically. Yeah.
That'll be much better if they can do it that way. If they can
Right.
break it down to a different series, and then you can spell everything out the way it should be. Otherwise, there's going to be some things left out. There's going to be some stuff that's untold, and there's not going to be the truth and how it really, really went down. And of course, Kaepernick probably going to have to bless this thing too, because he don't want things coming out that it didn't happen for real. He wants stuff that really went down to go out, probably even down to how he was paid by the NFL. He probably going to want that stuff told too. I mean, not the monetary deal, but the way it was broken down to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then even when he was supposed to be practicing for the NFL to get a tryout again, when that stuff all went wrong, he might want to talk about that as well. So we never know what could be the ultimate corporate of the things not going through. Yeah.
Right. And, it's kind of a sad state of affairs, because I would have loved to seen something like that come out to try to get a better understanding of why Colin Kaepernick, he knelt that day, which we all know he said police brutality. He stood for something that he totally believed in. And he put his money where his mouth was too. He actually put money behind social justice programs.
Yep.
But what I will say is, when you're playing professional sports, it covers all different, I would say, boundaries of life, in the sense where people who are rooting for a sports team, people who are rooting against a sports team. In other words, Charles Barkley summed it up eloquently when he said that he don't want to be a role model for anybody's kids, because the people who raise their kids should be the role model for their kids. Now, that made a lot of sense to me, but me personally, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I want both of you guys' take on this. I don't think sports is a specific place to try to get a point across about such a hot button social issue like that. I just don't think so. Now, you tell me if you do think so, why do you think so? If you're playing a sport, which is a job, it's just like being on a job. You're getting paid. You don't know who, I mean, the person who's cutting your check might not like your stance on it. Do you agree?
Yeah, but DC,
Okay.
understand something. Understand something, man. You're thinking of it as just your personal opinion,
Correct.
and rightfully so, and I respect it. But let me tell you the reality of it. The reality of it is the mere fact that if you was an average Joe, you wouldn't have a platform to do that. It was never going to be able to change anything. People that has a platform change things. Why the hell you think when a person that's running for a congressman or a Senate seat or a president, they want endorsement from people who has a large body of people to endorse them because
Mm-hmm.
it brings along, it sways people's mind because they feel like, wow, if this girl is this popular and if I can get her whole gang of followers to vote for me, then I can win an election. And that's where the platform lies. And that's the reason why there's no other way Colin Kaepernick can go forth with anything in terms of police brutality if he was just a guy who was going to do a 9-to-5 job. He don't have no popularity. Nobody know who he is. He only going to have the people that lives on his block knows that he's an honorable guy, and I respect his opinion. And that's just fact. So that's the reason why you have to do it when you have a platform like his. It happened with Wilt Chamberlain. It happened with Martin Luther King as a
And
pastor.
Muhammad
It
Ali.
happened Muhammad Ali. It happened to so many other people that had platforms in the civil rights movement. And if you didn't have that platform, you just was a guy who was going to be in a neighborhood and you would do things locally, but on a general scale, or it wouldn't fly because nobody knows you are. And that's the way it is, man. It's just the way it is. It's the reality of it all. So I just hope they can come to some type of agreement and get the thing out there and put it to rest because it's going to always be this what if issue floating around for many, many years to come, DC, and you know it. Yes.
How about you, Najee? Do you think professional sports is a place you should assert yourself like Colin Kaepernick did and kneel while the American national anthem is going on?
I mean, certain players do that now, like LeBron. But of course, some people don't want that same backfire also with it now because you have people like, let's say for example, James Harden, Steph Curry. If they see it could go south for them and they can probably lose their own endorsement, they won't try to mess up their own bag though. They still gonna aim for their own personal goal. See, when LeBron did that back when he was still with the Heat, if I'm not mistaken. That's when, yeah. So when, especially when it first started off with George Zimmerman killing that kid Trayvon, and
Correct.
then that's
Yeah.
when LeBron started kind of speak up and start to talk about politics and insert himself and stuff like that because LeBron felt like not only it moved him because he has two sons himself and that's before he had his daughter. It was so I guess that moved him in a way. Then he inserted himself and started to do movements and the hoodie situation and all that. But when it comes to other players, when they feel like they can compromise their own personal goals, they won't do it.
Well, Najee made a valid point because I'm going to tell you right now, you know who's a callous for not doing anything and running in the opposite
Who?
direction, DC, is Wayne The Rock Johnson. Is so many
Oh.
things that he totally disliked. When he started saying a few things about it, all those wrestling guys, and you know who those guys are, they started saying little things to him and he backed off and he ran the other way. So now he keep his mouth shut because all of his movies will get, questioned and everything else he's doing will be questioned. So he just staying out of it, man. He don't want to be bothered with any political stance on anything. So I understand some of that stuff, but some of it just turns you into a wuss, man, when you don't speak out on injustices, and it's sad. But people just need to learn how to get together and come to even just a middle ground. Because in life, you're not going to get everything you want. In a marriage, you're not getting everything you want. And listen, man, even in a marriage, if you can get 65, 70%, you better rock with it.
That's
because
true.
that 90% of stuff, it ain't happening. 80% of the stuff is not happening. If
That's
you
true.
can get 70, 30, you better rock with it, man, because you're not getting ready to get no perfect union at all. It's going to be something that you cannot stand. So, but then you might meet some girl that's just gorgeous from head to toe, but just as snobby, don't clean after herself, don't wash her dishes, don't do anything around the house that can turn your stomach. So that's why I'm saying, if you can get part of it, just rock with it. And I think we just need to battle ourselves down and pray for each other's side where we can come to some type of common ground, because that's all we got left, man. Because sadly, it's just like, if you don't think like me, you can't be my friend. People don't have the independent thoughts no more. If I don't believe in what you believe in, you no longer my friend. My wife can't hang out with you. My daughters can't hang out with you. My sons can't. That's the attitude people have portrayed now. If you don't believe in what I believe in, adios, amigos.
Yeah, amigos.
So it's sad. Yeah.
Just like what Medea, aka Tyler Perry, said. He said the most you're gonna get in a relationship is 80-20. 80-20. You don't. It's nothing gonna be no more than that. And if he said if you can get 100%, if you can get more than 80%, if you can get 100, congratulations, because you just found Jesus. That's the only way you're gonna ever get 100%.
That makes a lot of sense. I can relate with that for sure.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, and we'll wrap this one. I still think that there's a place for professional athletes to stand behind something of a belief, of a social belief, whether it's a social justice belief or any type of social issue that's going on in this country. Because first, let me just say this. This country is nowhere near perfect, and it's never going to be perfect when it comes to anything, whether it's social justice or whatever the case may be. There's always going to be something that's not going to seem right, if that makes sense. But I still think the platform that these professional athletes have, they can do it in a sense, from afar, rather than having to do it right in front and out front forward with it. That's just my personal opinion of it, where you got to show the world, because once he kneeled, he was basically showing everybody that he basically believed that he was on one side. He wasn't on the other, or he was in the middle. So either we live in a world now where you either with us or you're against us. You on one side or the other. Just like you explained, Isaiah, there's no middle ground. So you're going to have to take a side, and you're going to be wrong on either way, either side you take. So it's best to keep your mouth shut and out of it, and do it from a perspective where you're putting your money where your mouth is. You're putting your money behind it. You can start a nonprofit organization and do it from that point, because a lot of people looked at that he did on that kneel as a disrespect to the country and what the country stood for. So that's what it was all about.
Things I want to clarify, DC. That was the one thing I do want to clarify. I have absolutely no problem with him standing up for something, but the kneeling during the national anthem is what I'm talking about.
Right.
If you want to talk about whatever you believe, that's your own thought process, you do that. But during the national anthem, I would take my hat off.
Exactly.
And I would take my right hand, and put over my heart to pledge allegiance to the country as a whole. I'm not disrespecting the country. I'm not kneeling. I'm not doing any of that stuff. But even right now, when I walk inside of a church, I take off my hat. When I walk inside of a courtroom, I take off my hat. When I walk inside of a building, I take off my hat because I'm a gentleman also. So I don't wear my hat in church. I don't wear it in the courthouse. I don't wear it in any place where it's deemed to be disrespectful. So I'm sure the hell is not getting ready to kneel when the national anthem comes. I'm going to be singing the national anthem. I'm going to be singing along with it, not trying to be pissed off with the nation. Is people you got to deal with just the brutality of it, not just the nation. You deal with the police brutality, not the nation.
Well, you put your money into programs, and Colin Kaepernick was extremely rich when he was playing. So you put your money in, and this is what I'm suggesting. I would have never kneeled during the national anthem or sat down. You know, like you see certain people when the national anthem, everybody's standing up with their hand on their chest and their hats off. You see people just still sitting down. That's their prerogative. But I think it's very disrespectful to live in a country that fought so hard to bring all of these freedoms and all of these opportunities that we tend to enjoy. Because if Colin Kaepernick was in any other country, who knows, he could have disappeared for doing that.
Well, let me tell
you know what I mean?
This, man.
So I think it was highly disrespectful in that sense, from my perspective.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, is a political battle between Republicans and Democrats and all of that foolishness too. But as toughest stance as President Obama was on people's rights, he allegedly told Colin Kaepernick that was not the way to handle his situation. He told him that.
Exactly.
So that's one thing, DC. And if the president at the time told you that's just not the route, bro, don't do that. You can do it in other fashions, but once you start going against the entire country, that means you turning yourself on against you, because it's just not a fair assessment. I love the United States of America.
I do too.
I would fight for our
country.
Great.
I mean, to me, born and raised, this is
stand up for things in the Constitution.
Yep. Exactly. So, anyway, let's get to this last Andy Brown topic, and we'll close this show out. I do have some concerns, and I want to get you guys' opinions and takes on them. It looks like Dillon Gabriel from the Cleveland Browns was given an opportunity to start. Let me first start and say that Dillon Gabriel is a good football player. He was good when he was at Oregon. He was good when he was at University of Oklahoma. He was good when he was in high school. However, it looks like there is some competition to the point in that quarterback room in Cleveland where he ended up getting the nod. A lot of people didn't think he should have gotten a nod. If you ask me, whatever the coach want to do as far as giving a quarterback an opportunity and a nod, I don't have a problem with that. And I think Coach Kevin Stefanski is under a lot of pressure, and I think it's coming from Jimmy Haslam, the owner. He's having to walk a tightrope and a very, very fine line of how he's dealing with these quarterbacks in that quarterback room, and that boils down to Shedeur and Dillon Gabriel. It's only room for 3 quarterbacks as far as I can see it. I mean, they might keep 4. I doubt it. Somebody is the odd person out. It looks like Najee reported earlier that Joe Flacco is going to start the season. That is a great example of letting a veteran kick it off. I think Flacco is going to play well. I think Flacco is, to me, he's done an amazing job coming out of retirement back into football to play for the Browns. But it looks like Dillon Gabriel did not have a great game. And there was some comments that was made that caused a lot of chatter about how he really feels about the competition in that quarterback room, specifically with Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders is a prototype pro quarterback. I don't care who don't believe that. He is a traditional pro-style quarterback. He gets the ball out, and he's under the right tutelage now because with Kevin Stefanski's, he's not going to hold on to the ball as long as he did when he was at Colorado. I thought he held on to the ball too long, scrambling around back there instead of getting rid of the ball, and he took a lot of sacks in his college days. But he still outshined that with his performance between the two. Dylan Gabriel started this game out. It looked like he had 2 turnovers. He looked like he had a pick 6 and he had a fumble. Now, you have several media outlets, and I read one particular one from Yahoo Sports, and the guy who wrote that article acted just like Dylan Gabriel had a fantastic game. From what I picked up from the article itself was he didn't do bad at all. Now, when you have a turnover and you have a pick 6 and you're trying to make a team, it doesn't look good. Even with a fumble, it doesn't look good. Now, the pocket broke down on him, especially with that fumble. But, however, I want to get your take on this, Isaiah, because we'll use the quote, what Dylan Gabriel said. What do you think was on Dylan Gabriel's mind when he made the quote? And do you think it's fair that they started Dylan Gabriel over Shedeur in this particular game? Because I don't think Shedeur was worried about it. I don't think he cared.
Well, let me show you what it is to be a coach. First of all, you got to give all of these guys ample amount of opportunity. So you let both of your rookie guys start a game and then just let them have at it.
Exactly.
And then you see which ones prevail. And we all know which one prevailed. So the one who's throwing shade is the one who did not prevail. It's just simple as that. And of course they already know who they was going to let start. Now they're got their back against the wall of who they're going to keep on the team, so to speak, DC, because we already see that they get loaded with quarterbacks. So we got to make a decision on everybody. So to make a decision like this, we got to see them both play and give both of them a fair shot. And
Absolutely.
That's what they did. That's exactly what they did.
I thought Dylan Gabriel deserved that shot. I wasn't against him starting in this game. I didn't think Kevin Stefanski made a mistake by letting Dylan Gabriel play in this game, because I thought it was important that both players can prove what they can do on the field, right? That's just like anything in life.
They have to give both of them the same type of opportunity, in which that's what they did. So he failed. And so since he failed, he came out with a shot against his own personal player. And that's what happened, DC, in a nutshell. We don't have to go any further. He didn't do as good, so he came out with some extra added comments that wasn't even favorable to a teammate. So that's what it was. Now he's trying to play politics with it.
Well, he walked it back and said it didn't apply to Shedeur. But common sense of anybody who was standing there and listening, or when it hit social media, anybody with any kind of sense would know he was actually referring to Shedeur. So here's the quote. After Dylan Gabriel completed his preseason bout against the Philadelphia Eagles, Gabriel was asked during a CBS Sports broadcast about tuning out the noise surrounding the Browns quarterback competition. It looks as though Dylan responded by saying, yeah, it's just part of it. There's entertainers and there's competitors, and I totally understand that. But my job is to compete, and that's what I'm focused on doing, quote, Dylan Gabriel. Now, let me revert back to a quote that was made in college when Dylan Gabriel was playing for the University of Oregon. There was University of Oregon's coach, Dan Lanning, and they were in the locker room preparing to face off against Colorado. And he was motivating his players by telling his players they're playing for clicks and we're playing for wins. And it seems it's some parallel there in the mindset of people when you feel like another person is getting more attention than you are, to assert certain things the way you say certain things. Listen, they're both professionals now. You have to be careful what you say to this media, because this media can take your words and they can twist them up like spaghetti. It's just, you could be with all of the good intention in the world of saying something, but the media could twist it into something that will make it, controversial, if I'm not mistaken. So, one pick 6 and one fumble, and Shedeur Sanders had a very successful game where he didn't have any turnovers and he had TDs. if you are a coach and you're evaluating that, to me, that's an evaluation that shows that Dillon Gabriel didn't do well during this particular game. He might prove in the next game if he gets an opportunity to do that. And I feel like either player, if Shedeur doesn't end up with the Browns starting the regular season, he's going to be fine. And if Dillon Gabriel doesn't end up with starts in the regular season when the Browns start, he's going to be fine too, because either one of those players will end up on another franchise, on another team. So, Najee, tell me what you think about that quote and what Dillon Gabriel was trying to get across.
Well, from what it sounded like to me, it sounded like he knows that it's only 3 spots available. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to minimize what the next person do, because we can say they're teammates because they're on the same roster, but right now that's his greatest enemy, because he wants that permanent spot on that team. He already, I think, true to heart, he knows that he's not better than him. So what you need to do is you need to minimize what the next person could do for you on your team, and try to broaden yourself to be the better player for the franchise, versus if it's his style of play or the type of negativity a person brings to a team. Like, I'm here to just play. I'm here to play football and do good, and then and not bring all the noise that we don't need in the locker room. That's kind of what it sounded like to me.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it sounded like to me.
That's exactly what it sounds like to me too. And Kenny Pickett is second on the depth chart behind Joe Flacco, and it looks like Dillon Gabriel is third on the depth chart, and Shedeur Sanders is fourth. If the owner decides that he don't want Shedeur on that team, it will be known that he would definitely work out a trade to get him to where he needs to be, because he's going to be on somebody's franchise starting at some point in time in the 2025 season, I suspect. And if the Browns are smart, they're going to keep him on the roster and make sure that they can develop him into an all-pro quarterback. To me, most valuable player quarterback over time, so that, he could help that team try to reach heights that they might not reach. Would you agree with that, Isaiah?
Yeah, there's no question about it. All of these guys are good enough to make somebody's team, but it's just they're just on the same team right now, and they're competing for a job. And when you're competing for a job, that guy is your enemy to a certain degree. I mean, to throw shade out there, to hoping to catch fire, what other people can think as he do, but football minds and football eyes can see who's the better guy. I mean, he just don't fit for this club to be on the club with Shedeur. He just may have to just bounce on to another team. But since he's there, he's just trying to make the squad. That's all it really is. That's all it is, DC. And the thing is, that's why the guy said what he said. He didn't say anything different from what he was when he was in college. He was doing the same thing in college. His thought process has not changed, not one bit. So that's the way he thinks. That's what he really believes. And you don't have to read between the lines, and nobody altered what the sound bite was. And you don't have to try to clean it up afterwards, because I know what he meant, and most people knows exactly what he meant.
And it wasn't far off from the coach who was giving them that pregame prep. I mean, when Oregon played Colorado. And let me just kind of revert back to a summary of that game. The University of Oregon was a better team. The University of Oregon had more superior athletes on that team that day, specifically when they played Colorado. And Colorado, I believe it was in their second year of, playing Power 5 teams when it came to that. And I'm not excusing Colorado, because Colorado got outright beat. They got beat down in Oregon. They got handled. But you're a professional now. You're paying your mortgage and you're paying for all of this stuff. It ain't about your team no more, because in terms of a college team versus a professional team, when you get to that professional level, you have to show a professionalism about yourself where you just steer clear of all of that. Look, I'm going to try to play better next time. You don't bring that into the fold where you're saying you're here to some people are here to entertain. Everybody can read right through the lines on that. So that was a bad choice. I think it was a bad choice of words on Dylan Gabriel's part. And I thought it was a bad choice of words on his part, honestly.
Dude, he said what was on his mind. He felt
absolutely. And it wasn't a good choice of words. It wasn't a good set of words to mention entertain because someone is getting a lot of media attention on the team. That's the way I look at it.
I mean, the game is for entertainment, dog. I mean, that's what it is. That's what our show consists of, is entertainment. You want to entertain somebody, because if they're not being entertained, they're not coming to see you play. That's what it is.
True.
That's what sports is entertainment.
I agree. So we'll see where this goes, because the Browns just did the safest thing. They did the most safest decision, is to start Joe Flacco. That's an easy, to me, no-brainer, which we predicted as a collective weeks ago when we were talking about these guys and how this quarterback room was going to shape up for the Cleveland Browns, and we keep an eye out for that. And we're rooting for both players. I'm rooting for both players to be productive, So it looks like Teddy Bridgewater connected with Bucky Irving and Emeka Egbuka. Moving on to the next topic, and we'll close out. Teddy Bridgewater is currently with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'm glad he's back in the NFL. He's contributing to a team. He helped his high school team make it to a state championship and win, and then there was some fallout from the high school, and he was able to overcome all of that. He's back in the pros. He's going to make this team in Tampa Bay, and it looks as though I suspect Teddy Bridgewater is going to be a good backup for the Bucs behind Baker Mayfield. What do you think about that, Najee?
Oh, he's a solid backup, because I never thought Teddy Bridgewater was like the best starter anywhere. I think he's the perfect backup for you.
Absolutely.
So Baker Mayfield, that's going to be his team, whatever, if it's a blowout.
And it deserves to be Baker's Mayfield team. He's done a good job with Tampa.
Yeah. Then he's not just like he's one of the better quarterbacks when I talk about turnover ratio, that he don't really turn the ball over too much over his touchdown. So I like that too.
Yeah. So Isaiah, tell us a little bit about what you picked up from the Chicago game when the Chicago Bears played the Buffalo Bills. It looks like Caleb Williams showed out, and it looks like he had a really good game. They blew out the Buffalo Bills, but in the regular season, would you think they'd be able to do that?
No, the Buffalo Bills played half of their players. That's all that was. They didn't want to get anybody hurt. They know who they're going to start, so they just let those guys have their way and have their fun for right now, because the game don't mean anything. They think it's more important to just play their players during the game instead of playing in the playoffs. I mean, in the preseason. So that's what they did. They didn't want to play any of their elite players and get them injured. They want to make sure that they evaluate their players during practice, and now they letting their newcomers play, and that's all it is. I mean, that's the reason why. And the Bears had a good time, because they're not going to be winning like that during the regular season. They had a blast, man.
Well, Ben Johnson is going to turn that franchise around. Ben Johnson's the current head coach, offensive wizard. I admire Ben Johnson when he was with Detroit. He helped Detroit reach some heights that they never would have probably reached, And I think Ben Johnson is going to be on his way with getting that team in Chicago back together. So that's a wrap for the DC Stewart Show podcast, featuring McKinfolk, Isaiah McKinfolk, Najee. Looks like we had an NFL preseason wrap. We talked a little bit about, Hall of Famers, who we think should be Hall of Famers. We're going to put that in the comments in YouTube and Facebook, and we want you to comment on who you think should be in the Hall versus who shouldn't be in the Hall. And it looks like Isaiah and Najee, I'm going to go ahead and ask Isaiah your closing thoughts.
Well, listen, this was a beautiful segment today. I just did some correspondence stuff here at the Dolphins camp. These guys are looking good. The last 2 games, they look really well and see the growth in the Dolphins. And we want the 305 Nation to come out and watch all of our Dolphins, our Canes, everything got to do with the 305, baby. Support them. Listen, man, you guys, watch out for your elderly folks. Watch out for the little kids because they're in school, and keep your health on par, man, because things are going down. So love you guys. We'll speak soon. Take care. Have a pleasant week.
Absolutely. You do the same. How about you, Najee?
All right, love God, because He's definitely gonna love you. Peace and blessings of everything that we have going on in the day and world. And happy birthday to my niece. She's turning 9 tomorrow.
Happy
She told me
birthday.
I have to stop
Absolutely.
wearing black shirts every segment. So I say, you know what? Let me go and put Kobe on right quick.
You got to put Kobe on for that one. Yeah, exactly.
Kobe on. I said, okay, I got you, boo. I got you.
Absolutely. So that's a wrap, just like I just said, and we're going to close it out. Thank you for joining the DC Stewart Show podcast, along with my kinfolk Isaiah and kinfolk Najee. Please take care of yourself before you take care of others. Peace, love, and prosperity. Take it easy.